So let's jump right into it. So Rav Shimshon Pinkus in the Sefer Sharim Tefilah, we've seen pieces of this Sefer before, but so this is really a full chapter on Rina, one of the languages of Tefilah that Chazal talk about the different languages or the different words that refer to Tefilah. Rina is one of them, and the pasuk from Yirmiyahu quotes us, and says. Rina utfila, and we see this in other places, and we'll see it quoted as well. But the idea of Rina and tefillah go together in psukim. And so, what does that mean? What is Rina? So, Rav Shimshon starts by saying, Rina he tefillah l'shevach lahodos lifnei Hashem. B'kach nidrish b'midrash v'aschanan yochol yehei adam tovet sarcha v'yotzelo. Kvar Pirish Shlomo Lishmoa El Harina Vel Hatfila. Right, that's probably one of the more famous quotes that we have. Lishmoa El Harina Vel Hatfila. I think that pasuk shows up in our slichos. So Rina Zu Kolaso Shahagash Baruchu Utfila Litzorchav Shal Adam Adkan Lashono. So the Medrash in Veschanan starts by saying, is it possible that we could walk up to davening and sort of just burst forth with all of our requests, like, hey, this is what we need, God, help us out, and then turn around and leave. And so the pasuk says to listen to the Rina and the Tefilah. So what does that mean? Rina is when we are giving shavach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Tefilah is when we're actually asking for whatever it is that we need. So he says, "V'tzarech lahakdim esarina l'tefillah." So Rav Shimshon says the first thing we have to understand is that we have to start with Rina, then we can move into Tefilah. But Brachos, the Gemara says, "The olam yisader ha'adam shavacho shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'achar kach yispala." Right, we first have to say shavach, and then we can be mispalo. Tiknu anshe knesses agedola shlosh barachos rishono shel tefillah lesidur shvacho shel makom, and this is why we have the first three brachos in the Shemona Esrei of Magen Avraham, Tchias Mesim, and then Hakel Kadosh. Right, that is to sort of set us up for, those are the three brachos of Shavach, of Rina, and then we can move into the bakashos, into what it is that we're asking for. Okay, now we're going to go much deeper into this, so, if it doesn't seem quite clear yet, we're really going to take a much deeper dive. So he says, V'hinei Rambam, Reish Hilchos Tefilah. Mashma lechora shesidur hashavach hu ma'akev be'ikar din tefillah deraisa. He says and he's going to quote it, but he says the Rambam says something very interesting. He says that the whether we put in that shavach is actually can be ma'akev. In other words, it can stand in the way of our tefillah, at least on the deraisa level, of being considered to be a true tefillah. So the Vizelashonos, this is what the Rambam says. This is mitzvah say leispala b'chol yom shneamar va'avadtem es Hashem Elokechem. So the Rambam says it's a mitzvah deraisa that we daven every day. Mipi hashmol lamdu avodazu hi tefila shneamar lavda b'chol levavchem v'amru chachamim ezu hi avoda shebelev zu tefila. Right, so when we talk about avoda, when it says "V'avatem es Hashem Elokechem," what is the avoda that we're doing? We're talking about avoda, meaning tefillah, because it's an avoda shebelev, as Chazal say. Okay, but ube halacha beis, the Rambam continues. Ella chiv mitzvah zu kachu sheyehei adam mischanin u'mispala b'chol yom. Umagid shvacho shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'achar kach shol tzrachav shehu tzorich lahem v'bakasha u'b'tchina v'achar kach nosin shavach v'odaya l'Hashem ahatova u'lashpia lo kol echad l'fi kocho ad kan lashono. But then the Rambam says that we have a chiyuv to start out with this, with the Shavach to Hashem. Then we can ask for what it is that we need, and then we go back into Shavach and Hodah. Right? That's at the end of Shemona Esrei. The last three are also, we're going back to providing Shavach. We have Modim, right? We have Sim Shalom. So all of that is how we conclude it, and we see from the Rambam there, though he's saying that we need both that Shavach and we need the bakashos of Tefilah as well. V'imnemar shesidur Shavach or Shal Hakadosh Baruch Hu me'akev be'ikar din Tefilah deraisa nir habir bezed hine chiyuv Tefilah hamuzkar b'Torah hu avoda v'adai demuvan zeh. So avoda eno me'inyan v'yidnu elenu avoda kasher elo kamo v'avadatem es Hashem Elokechem. So what does it mean that we have to that we have to have the Shavach, and that this is all considered to be part of? And he's still going within the Rambam, right? The Rambam lays it out as this is our avoda. And so Rav Shimshon wants to do a little bit of a deeper dive here. So what does it mean avoda? And he says clearly, we can't be translating the word avoda in the way of, v'yidnu aleinu avoda kasha. This isn't like in Mitzrayim where they gave us, hammers and chisels and told us to break apart rocks, and that was the avoda we're talking about here. This is avadatem as Hashem Elokechem. The pasuk in Bamidbar kol haba la'avod avodas avoda v'hainu polchan v'sarus mitoch ha'aracha. His batlus lifnei Hashem. Now this is the avoda. This is the spiritual avoda that we have to Hashem. Kolashna Gemara be'inyan avodas hakarbanos. So, and we can accord it also to the avoda in the Beis Hamikdash, the avoda of karbanos. Shchita lav avodahi v'hainu the shchita ena ke'omed umisharis lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he says it's an interesting thing, right? To bring a korban, you have to shecht the animal first. But we don't see that the shechita is actually considered to be part of the actual avoda of the kohanim. And in some cases, the Yisrael can do the shechita himself. He doesn't say this, but it's just, interestingly, that there is a disconnect between the shechita, which we might actually consider to be part of the avoda, because if we're thinking about avoda as a physical activity that we do, shechita is certainly, right, a physical activity and requires a lot of time and effort to complete that process of shechita. But he says shechita lav avodahi v'hainu the shechita eno ke'omed u'misharis lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's not considered to be in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to be serving him. That's the shechita is not part of that. Elahi kedei lahatir habehema lahakrova. It's really just a preparatory step that we take. Yes, it's required, but it's preparation. And therefore, it's not considered to be part of the halachas of the kohen, the bigdei kahuna. None of the parts that we consider to be that we learn as part of the avoda. Shechita isn't part of that. Umuvan shel avodahu. She'omed u'misharis lifnei mi she'makir es alakuso vermuso mevato atzmo lefanov. And the avoda is really when we're standing in front of Hashem, we are being misharis, we're serving Hashem, we are recognizing what is godliness, what is those characteristics, those aspects of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we are in the process, we are being mevato ourselves, realizing, I guess our place, in relation to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'imkein lo shayach lechora shetehei tefila nechshavas la'avoda im eno yodea or she'enu somlev she'oved lifnei halokim. And if so, he says, then it would seem that in order for our tefillah to be considered to be an avoda, you can't really do that unless you're really sort of focused and paying attention to what it is that you're doing, to the avoda of Hashem. And even more so, if we don't even think about what is Hashem? Like what are these aspects of Hashem that we can put into words? So l'chein, like achasha yakdim v'yasader shvacho shel Kadosh Baruch Hu, hainu izbonenus b'lakusu yisbarach azeh yehe asku esek shel avoda. And he says, and until we do that, until you you organize your tefillah in such a way that you start out with the shevach. And what is that? That's really, when you think about it, why is it that we're saying all this shavach to Hashem? It's in order for us to be thinking about who it is that we're in front of. Like, why are we here? What are we doing? What's our relationship to Hashem? And until we do that, our asik, that which we're engaged in, is not an avoda, and that's what the avoda requires. And so I think this is what Rav Shimshon is trying to understand, that the Rambam in those two halachos, where he says that the shavach is part of, an intrinsic part of the deraisa mitzvah of tefillah. If shavach is part of it, that means that shavach also is part of the avoda. And so that's really what he's pulling apart here. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so let's keep going. V'hinei gam ha-karbonos, v'gam ha-tefillah heim avoda, v'domim heim zelazeh, karbonos avoda v'maisa, tefillah avodas shabelev. And he's going to continue with this analysis, the analogy of the korbanos being an avoda, but our davening is also too. So clearly the korbanos are going to be an avoda that requires an activity, physical action, whereas tefillah we talk about as being the avoda shebelev. Okay, so avodas korbanos pashut shehi miuchedes. Rakla lokim levado shebein adam lechavero af im yitin lechavero merov ahava v'aracham matanos kesef zahav ach lolam lo yakriv lechavero korban bechri laros lo avaso umisiroso elav. And he says that it's an interesting idea that you could have somebody in your life that you love and respect and all this, and you might give them gifts, you might do certain things for them to show them how much you care about them, how much you value, right, your relationship with them, but you're not going to be makri of a korban to them, right? That you wouldn't do. Unless you're going to make this person into an avodah zarah, right? You're not going to be makri to them. Shehoras hakorban he shvichas damo. Shekorbanos heim hadoron amare shemisiras v'ava bo'arim bekirbo ad kadei shvichas damo v'chelbo al mizbech ahava. And he says, what is the korban? The korban is really our representation that we're spilling our blood, right? We're doing it on an animal. We're not doing our own blood, but that's sort of the idea, is that we are coming in front of Hashem and we're saying to Hashem, because just through the feeling of love that is burning inside of us, that we are willing to spill our blood in the form of this korban to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. V'klahu b'chol makom chayach kodmim. Sorry, did I lose my space? But that's not something you would ever do. That's not what's part of a relationship. That's not how we think about a friend or even a relative, a loved one. That the only thing I'm going to spill, my kishkas out for, is going to be a Kadosh Baruch Hu. V'klahu b'kol makom chayecha kodmim v'rak l'misha hu alakus vein sofios tzurich levato nafsho elav ad kadei is hakorvasa al amizbech avodaso. Because we wouldn't spill our life out for somebody else. Our life comes first, right? Al pi halacha, our life comes first. But when we think about a Kadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is who gives us our life. That is the Hashem is the only one that we would spill our blood for, at least figuratively, and that's where that's the essence of the karbanos. V'zehu muvan hamuvan hakarbanos b'pshuto bitui sho'ava v'yira misiros ad kadei his bartlus. shvichos damo hanefesh atzmo. He says that is really sort of the simple essence of a korban. Is it's an expression of love and fear that we're also giving over the fact that we're nullifying ourselves, meaning that our life, our soul, everything is Hashem's. The only one that we would ever spill that for or express that to would be Hashem, and not to a person. Okay, so let's see where he's taking this. Now, what is that Tefilah? I'll also sorry about that. The avodas Tefilah, also mishko mamish, and that's exactly what the avoda of Tefilah is as well. Hainu shemakir belibo is patluso elakuso is barach, that we are recognizing in our hearts, and we are trying to also express that is batlus. I'm not sure how to really translate that well, but understanding the sort of nullifying what I am, my own individuality, understanding in relation to Hashem. Li'acholasov ve'utzmaso habilti balas tachlis shechayev shel v'chol machsorov mufkadim etzli yisbarach v'rak be'efsharaso yisbarach l'malam, that everything that I need, everything that I lack, is only by Hashem, and only Hashem has the capability to fulfill that which I need, whether it's my spiritual needs, my physical needs, all of that. Only Hashem. So that's why we can say, we can understand that our nefesh and everything that we own is batel to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, because that's the only one who can provide for us all those things that we have and what we need. Mitocha karazu memela mevakesh al atzma v'chasronu makir bechasdu yisbarach ha'insof u'gvuraso halokis lamalech chasronasav umido umegado me'afshar meromem al kach is batlus gemura. And through that recognition that only Hashem can provide, that's where that brings the possibility for us to sort of feel this way and to have a complete his batlus, and that in our avoda. So he says, "Velule de mistafina hayisi omer," and again he's still trying to understand this connection between the shavach and the Tefilah that we were saying before, the Rina and the Tefilah, and he says, and how the Rambam is putting them together as one, inside one mitzvah. So he says that, and if it weren't for the fact that I'm afraid that I've never seen anybody else say this before, Lule de mistafina hayisi omer, she bakasha levad kishihi rak mitoch hakara she'afal she'alkol panim yishkan mi shebiyadu lazar lo kederach shemevake she'ani asher v'acholim merofe, that if we simply go up to Hashem, you start davening by presenting your request. I guess you show up and you just daven Shemona Esrei, and you don't do, maybe even start in the middle of Shemona Esrei, right? If we're trying to use this, I'll give a more concrete example, but you walk up and you simply start asking Hashem for all the things that you need. He says, even if you have that recognition that it's coming from Hashem, just like when a poor person walks up to somebody that he recognizes as a wealthy person who can write him a check and help him out of his distress, or like a sick person, like an ill person, will come up to a doctor and say, I'm not feeling well. These are my problems. You can help me. So mibli liachis lahem kol elyonos v'lakos imevakesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'osa ofen. But if you don't start out with the shavach and you simply start there, ein bakasha zu chashuva avoda. Your bakasha, it is davening. You're davening to Hashem, but it's not an avoda. The avoda, b'muvna poshet hu she'ovda b'mashem yaches lo elakus v'gadlus naroim, because the avoda is our simple understanding. It's just the way that we are relating to godliness and the greatness and the awesomeness, and it's the actual term awesomeness, right, of Hashem. So without that, yes, you have prayer, you have davening. So in Achinami, yes, you do have a Tefilah, and Hashem may still answer your prayer and provide that which you're asking for, that you need. Avoda inkan, but that's not avoda. The Tefilah de Ayri b'hachiv de Araisa hi avoda, because the Tefilah that comes from the mitzvah deraisa is an avoda. V'chol she'ein makir alakuso v'gedulaso hanoraim lo chashiva avoda. And therefore, without that, what you're doing is not considered to be an avoda. L'chein tzarich kodem l'sader shvach shel makom v'rak achar kach yispal. And that's why you have to start out with the Rina, the shevach, and then you can move into actually davening and making those requests. Sharak im kovea la'atzmo kodem shehu omed lifnei elokim v'ayedei sidur shvacho shel kovea b'levovo mahu elokim. Until you set this out and start to do the shavach and set into your heart, recognize what is God. She'ein zerak ba'al koach ba'alma me'asug sheyesh b'lameinu. Elishem yaches lo elokus kfi hasagaso rak ayde kach havigam bakashaso avodo havit tefillah deraisa. So in other words, the only way to really fulfill the obligation of tefillah deraisa is that we have to set things in motion the way, and that's truly right, the way that Chazal have set our davening together inside our siddur. We've got a few more minutes, so let's take this, because I think so. What he's really done in this first piece is really just outlined what is Rina, what is Tefilah, what is the Chiyuv D'Oraisa of Avoda, like just the basic components of it. But he's going to take this much deeper, really understand how we can relate to the idea of Shavach versus, and how we relate to davening, I think, as a whole. So let's at least start this, and we can always, if we don't get through Beis, we can always pick this up next week. So he says, you do it, the Echad, Misodos ha'avoda hi hasimcha. Says it's known that avoda, one of the foundations of avoda is that we have to do it b'simcha. Come on, dechsev ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. Right, the famous pasuk ivdu es Hashem b'simcha Tehillim. We also have the pasuk in Devarim. Tachas asher lo avarates Hashem elokecha b'simcha uvetovlev. Right, this is right in the middle, maybe towards the end of the Tochacha in Veschanan, where the pasuk says that why did all these klalos happen, curses happen to us? Because really it's because we weren't oved Hashem b'simcha b'tovlev. Amnam be'emes milvad masha simcha hi yesod ba'alacha. Avoda should serich laorer simcha kasher ovdim lifnei Hashem. He says, besides the fact that simcha is a yesod, it is a foundation, it's a fundamental part of how we should be approaching our avoda to Hashem. Yoser he simin la avoda, but he said it's also a simin for the avoda. It's a recognizable sign within us. Demisha ome b'tefila o b'shar avodas habore ve'eno b'matzav shal simcha. Simanhu shebe'emes eno osek b'avoda klal. He says if you're coming up to something, any kind of avoda, whether it's davening or another mitzvah, and you're not b'simcha, then that is a siman that this isn't really avoda for you. She'al korchach eno yodeya miyu HaKadosh Baruch Hu umahi avoda lefanav, because it means that we don't understand Hashem, we don't understand what the avoda is for Him. Dim haya yodeas a perush hapashut biyoser shel shemo yisbarach v'hatov erachim u'menachim bo yefshar haya b'mitzir shelo yismali b'simcha. So if you're thinking about what Hashem is and what Hashem provides for us, and that Hashem is everything, how do you you wouldn't be able to start the process of davening or any other mitzvah without being besimcha, because you're thinking about this is what Hashem provides, this is what Hashem has given us. Im tira adam haholech berchov mirim kis she'ata yodea sheyesh ba'otzer shal zehuvim ve'ein b'mara panav she'oso ish kol shinoi v'simcha simin baru shehu baruhu she'eno yodea ma tochno shal kis. Is that if somebody's walking around with a purse full of gold coins and he doesn't have a big smile on his face, he says it's a clear sign that he probably has no idea what's actually inside that purse, right? Because if he did, he would certainly be very happy. B'chem b'Tefilah, kishe'omed lefanav yisbarach shmo b'teva u'behechra she'ismale b'simcha gedola k'mo she'amru chazal kishe'ata omim mispala l'fnei Elokim yehelid becha samech she'ata mispala l'fnei Elokim she'ein kamohu. That Chazal say that when we're walking up to daven, we should be part of simcha when we think about, when we're just thinking about who it is that we're standing in front of. V'im eina b'simcha bal korchach de'eno yodea o she'eno sam al libo mahu tochen amay mirazeh. And if you're not b'simcha, it means that you're not really thinking about, you're not paying attention to what's really going on, what you're actually doing in that moment. The kivin shekain ein kan avoda, and therefore it's not avoda. If you're not paying attention, you're not really thinking about what you're doing, you're not b'simcha, it's also not avoda. The Efshar Lomar Alav, the Oseg Avoda, Plach Komay Maria, and there's a Haggah here, but Im Eno Yodeya, Miu Abore, Uma Mashmao, Sadavar Lava Lefanav, Avoda, Ena Mitzvah Masis, Kamo Lulav, Takaponim Lulav Biado. He says, Avoda is not an activity, it's not a physical activity like you're holding a lulav. I could be holding a lulav and thinking about something else, and I still at least have made the mitzvah of netilas lulav, because that's all that's really required of me, is to know that I'm making, I'm doing the mitzvah of lulav and esrog of the dalad minim. But he says avoda is not like that. Shavoda mislive, but if it's not a fire inside of you, in kan placha me maria mitzias. There's no mitzias of avoda because it's not a feeling within your heart, and that's really what it should be. We'll just end here with this. He has his hagos. He has these little pieces that he adds in. He says, "V'yesh kan yesod gado b'Torah b'bir ha'inyan tzrichen la'amod alav." He says, "There's something here that we really have to think about and pay attention to. Kol hashemos v'kinuyim v'omek ha'asoga begadlus abore im kol ein sofiosam." He says, think about all the different names and nicknames. And the depths of it that we give to Hashem throughout our davening. What are they? Lo nemru lasis erech legadlus abore mitzido yisbarach. We're not doing it for Hashem, right? My kids always say, why are we saying all these things? Like, doesn't Hashem knows how great He is? He doesn't need us to say, right? What is it? No, it's for us. It's for us to. It's not for Hashem. Shalav yisbarach ksiv lo dumya tehila v'im banu l'shavcho. Hainu shoskim v'sulo elkol hashemos v'darchei hashgacha noraim ein hem ela gadlusu yisbarach beinin darchei hatova v'chesed shemashpi aleinu. All those different names are indicating the different methods, aspects, the way that Hashem provides good and chesed upon all of us. That's what those different names are, and that's how we should be approaching those, thinking about. V'chein kol shirs v'shishbachos shenemru v'chol sefer tehillim she'amar David alav hashalom shehema levar gadlus abore. All of the different songs and the tishbachos, everything that we do, all of tehillim, is only for us to understand and to get a better gain a better understanding, a deeper understanding of who Hashem is and in all the aspects of our lives. I knew rak le'inin atov shemashpia aleinu shakol rak mitzad ma'aseh klapeinu v'zehu omek divrei Chazal kol masha da'avid rachmana letav avid. And that's what the Gemara is saying when the Gemara Bracha says that everything that Hashem does is for the good. That's really what this is. Like all the different things that are going on, everything is for our benefit. I know to call in Yanav Shal Godesh Baruch Hu Ba'olamo Hema. Everything that Hashem does are different types, different aspects of good and chesed. So we'll stop here, but that's just one other thing to think about in all the different things that we daven is it's all for our benefit to be able to approach the idea of Shavach and Rina And next week, hopefully, we'll be able to continue this and look at different aspects again of Rina, Tefilah, and how it all comes together, and hopefully give us a better appreciation for approaching davening.